Hey, Nick. I just testing things out over here.
Okay, sounds good.
Yep.
I'll just be here in the background. If you need any help, just let me know.
Okay. Cool. Hmm. Hey, Nick. When I'm ready to start, I just jump right into it. How does this?
Ready? Hello, everyone. If you're starting to join in, we're going to give it maybe a couple more minutes before we start up with Donavan for Purple Maiʻa. Yeah, we'll get, sorry, Donovan, we'll give it about 2 more minutes.
Cool. Yeah, 1:35 is fine. If everyone who's joining us, if you don't mind dropping in the chat, um, just where you're from, just kind of get a check in where folks are checking the conference out from. That'd be cool. Maria, aloha, Jade. Sherry, aloha. Hey, aloha, Sam. Awesome. Aloha, Theodora. Yeah, it's starting to calm down here too, right up the road from you, in Mo'iliili. It's starting to. We have to go put sandbags out just to make sure. Lua Lua Lei's in the house. Aloha Nui. I saw some photos on Instagram. Rain is coming down there too right now. Everybody stay dry. Mahalo for sharing where you guys are at. One more pico question too, if you guys start, just maybe conversation starter while we wait to officially kick it off. I know we're just coming out of the lunch hour, not sure if everybody had a chance to go eat lunch, but maybe drop in what you had. I will go first. I'll show you guys what I had. Am having, my wife was nice, dropped off a box of Cinnabons for me. I was too nervous to eat, and I was busy getting this presentation ready to eat breakfast. And so I've got that sitting right there. As soon as we wrap up, then I'm going to dig into that and then go work out promptly after that too. Going to work off all those calories from that Cinnabon. So yeah, drop in the chat if you don't mind what you have for lunch, or will have for lunch if you haven't had it as well. Ooh. So Nick, if okay with you, probably just get started, yeah?
Good.
Cool. Mahalo. Thanks for inviting me, Nick. I really appreciate CNHA reaching out, offering a chance for us to share the story of Purple Maiʻa. Aloha nui. We had a chance to check in with folks who are visiting from all over the place. Kapahulu, Lualei, up the road, Kapahulu, aloha nui. I had a chance to take a look at the schedule. There are other sessions that are happening, and it looked really interesting. Hawaiians in crypto. There was an OEV leadership and also resources, CNHA resources session that is being offered concurrently. And so I was super interested in checking those out too. So if anytime you guys want to pop out, check those out and come back in, please do so. Yeah, I may actually try to see if I can squeeze in some time to see what's going on in those sessions too. And so I'm going to just jump into the presentation. I spent this morning, maybe last week, putting it together about Purple Maiʻa. Got a papahana or an agenda that I put together, and really wanted to take the opportunity to just share what we've been working on. The talk story, kind of really informal conversation about Purple Maiʻa, our stories, why we started it, what we're doing today, what we're working towards. There are a lot of pictures, and I pulled up some videos and of some of our haumāna work, so you guys can check that out. And later on in the hour, I have a couple of folks who would like to bring on stage to share some of their work. So you can see what some folks who are kanaka working on in innovation and tech space are doing. So, and then wrap it up with just some final thoughts. So that's the papahana for the agenda for this presentation. If you first time hearing about Purple Maiʻa is a 501c3 nonprofit foundation, nonprofit organization. We were founded in 2015, and our mission is to educate and empower the next generation of culturally grounded, community-serving tech makers and problem solvers. Our vision is to become a world-class Hawaiian institution that sets the standard for excellence in education, innovation, entrepreneurship, and service of land and people. And to that end, we do that through programming, projects, programs, curriculum in three core areas. The first is what we started off with, our Kaikaina program, which is a youth education program that starts at the middle school. And more recently, we've started to work in the post-secondary level. Our newest program is a program called Hiapo. It's a workforce tech training program focused on helping adults and career changers interested in getting into entry-level positions in the tech industry. And finally, our last program is called Malama. It's a new program, relatively new program, and it's sort of an evolution of some work that we had done around entrepreneurship and thinking about the kinds of opportunities that we were preparing our kaikaina for. And I'll get into more about each of those programs. But starting in 2015 and fast forwarding today, where we are at right now, we're about 40 employees. We are headquartered in Halauʻinana in Moʻiliʻili in the Aupua Waikiki Waina, Kona on Oahu. We have employees and staff that are kind of all over the place, mostly remote, but all over the place. We have folks that are in Aotearoa, on the continental US, in our different programs. We have on our youth education side, we've been to date over the last 5 or 6 years, we've worked with up to 6,000, a little over 1,000, maybe reaching 2,000 students altogether. And lots of just exciting projects and a lot of inspiring stories that came out of all that work in time that we'll get into in a little bit. Proper introduction to the founders of the firm, Olin Lagan, Kelsey, and myself. We co-founded this back in 2015. And in case you're wondering, yeah, that is me. That is not Bulaʻia that showed up today. I do have puka teeth. And I did write to Kanakola if I could get my front teeth for Christmas. And unfortunately, it's going to take a little bit more time for that to come in. But I figure it's okay. So in case you're wondering, looking at the photo and also me talking, I'm a little bit Bulaʻia action today, but it should be fun, yeah? So Olin Lagan and I, Olin is originally from Waimanalo. He presently lives in Kalihiuka. Background in engineering, and he started a number of companies, spent half his professional life in for-profit entities and nonprofit. He is a prolific innovator and developer. He's authored a number of patents and had his work adopted by institutions like Disney, MIT, Media Lab. More recently, he led a volunteer group to develop these manual ventilators in response to COVID. They were able to develop 300 hand crank ventilators, as a response to try to kokua and kakoa with the skills and talents that he has. My second co-founder is Kelsey Amos. Kelsey is originally from Mililani, and she presently lives in Pu'unui. She has a PhD and a master's in English and a bachelor's in cultural studies from New York University. She originally came to us as a grant writer, but very quickly we realized that she brought a lot of gifts and skills, and is now one of the co-founders and anchor points of our organization. Myself, I presently live in Waiau. I'm originally from Lanai. I've started a few companies. I originally started as a teacher after graduating from UH with a bachelor's in Hawaiian language. I presently sit on the boards of Shifted Energy, haumāna, HVCA, and am currently a venture capitalist at Startup Capital Ventures. And so coming back to sort of my story, my presentation today is kind of a reflective of my perspectives on our organization and the work that we've done to this point. And I think what we are. And so a lot of the stories I'll share is maybe from my perspective. And so, sharing where I'm from, Lanai City, where the arrow is kind of a snapshot, doesn't look like this today. I saw in a lot of the Instagram videos where it's just pouring rain and everything is gray and everything is muddy. But I grew up right around here where the arrow is pointing. Ilima Avenue. I was raised by my paternal grandparents, Charles and Mabel Kealoha. I had the honor and privilege of working on the last pineapple plantation harvest. It was, that experience that told me I should really buckle down and study hard, because this kind of work is hard work and I'm kind of not up to it. So was graduated from Lanai back in the early 90s and went to UH and studied Hawaiian language, and eventually came back to Lanai and taught for 4.5 years. First social studies, and then I took over the computers, technology, and business line before heading back to school and studying law and business, and eventually getting into the tech industry. This is not familiar. This is Hulupoia Beach, Manila Beach, some call it. beach that I spent a lot of time growing up, and I think wistfully back to this day about going back and like hanging out and chilling. We spent a lot of time camping on this side of the beach. During the summertime, the summer swells would hit and we'd be surfing all over here. All the boys and all the families would set up shop over here. And so it's kind of a real awesome experience growing up on Lanai. And so if you're ever there and you are on the beach and there's waves breaking and you never bring your board, you just stop by anybody and ask them to borrow the surfboard and let them know Donovan said it was okay. And they probably let you go and probably feed you after. But fond memories of that place. Now, over the last 5 years, I've been spending a lot of time in Silicon Valley. I started working as a venture capitalist for that firm, Startup Capital Ventures, 5 years ago, and that required me to travel pretty frequently to the Bay Area. And so this is kind of a cartoon map overlay that shows Silicon Valley from San Francisco all the way down to San Jose and the various technology companies that are located, headquartered here. And if you take a look at this next photo, I tried to highlight, this is the area where I spend a lot of my time. And so our office is actually in a place called Menlo Park, which is right around here. Around Menlo Park, you have all these different tech companies like Google, which is here. Facebook is around here. Obviously, Stanford University is here. And if you go down, I forget the freeway, but if you go down the road, Apple and all these other tech companies are here. But in spending so much time in the Bay Area, my job there is to work on a team to look for high potential companies, technology companies that have the potential to grow in terms of value. And my sort of job involves listening to pitches, finding the companies that fit our investment criteria for our firm, and then invest and help those companies try to grow. But in the last 5 years, I probably saw anywhere between 500 to 1,000 pitches, and I can count on my hand the number of companies founded by people from Hawaii. On one hand, even less Native Hawaiian founded companies that were coming in to pitch for investment. And it got me thinking about what our role or what our kuleana is, being from this place and being of this place and working in that place and recognizing some of the opportunities, and then also having a desire to want to try to help out more. And so that was mainly the impetus, my desire for wanting to start Purple Maiʻa. And it started real simply, really humbly. This is our first class back in 2016. Middle school kids at Jarrett Middle School, One Valley over in Palolo Valley. This is our first kumu, Bill Evangelista, who is originally from Waiʻanae. He was a graduate of the Waiʻanae Sea Rider Productions, and Charles Nguyen, who brought a lot of engineering and computer science background. But we started real simply, real humbly, just wanting to try to create excitement, enthusiasm for technology. This is Bill at recruitment day. We had brought out some engineering toys that we used to get the students interested. In that first class, that first year, we taught computer networking, opening up the computers, explaining to the students how the chips and all the different component parts of a computer worked. And these are all refurbished computers that were donated to us. And so we took them apart, fixed them up, put them together, taught the kids how to install software, and then started playing around with different kinds of software programs in an effort to get students more interested in technology, and then started to step into teaching them coding and computer science. And this is them building something together in Minecraft. This is a while ago. Since then, after that first year and seeing the success and having just the kids be really stoked about the programs and excitement about learning these new things, we were fortunate to grow the program to start to work with students from other islands. And so this is at Hui Malama Learning Center here we were working with students and teaching them how to build video games. And so this is a shot of one of our students there proudly showing off his video game that he developed after a semester of working with us. The kids were learning C# and video game design and how to create assets and put it all together and compile it into a video game that they got to deploy and show off to their parents on the tablets that we got for every one of the students there. We also started bringing our programs outside to more higher need areas. And so this is Tom Carr, one of our students from Waiʻanae, doing something with his spoon, taking an odd picture, but as you can see on his screen, he's working on some mobile mock-ups. This is at a workshop that we had hosted on the campus of, and taking us through the demo of his project. And so these are the first and early years and building conviction and seeing the progress that the students are making and wanting to reach more students. We kept growing the program until today. This is a snapshot of the past year. As I mentioned earlier, we probably worked with over 1,000, if not approaching 2,000 students. But in the last year alone, the 2020-2021 school year, we worked with nearly 450 students across most of the Hawaiian Islands. And we had 30 unique class offerings all over the place. You know, it started off with computers, but then we realized that there's areas of interest in all kinds of things related to technology. And so we offered citizen science classes. There were classes on biomimicry. There were classes teaching students how to develop apps with using no-code software tools, and even entrepreneurship classes. In terms of stats, you know, of the 450 that we surveyed, over a majority of students identified as being Native Hawaiian. And one area that we've been pretty intentional on and trying to grow is ensuring that there are more kaikamahine involved in the programming. And so that's, as of last year, the amount of girls that are participating in the youth education program. The image to the right is some of our students during our hybrid summer classes when it was possible to host classes. We started doing hybrid classes to allow our students to come in with all the safety measures in place to make sure that they were safe, and then learn about, this is, I think, a math class related to a lesson that they were working on. And this is some of the work that they've done. And so you can see here, like, just the response, snapshot of some classes that we hosted. And this is kind of in response to COVID. You can see a lot of our programming, you know, for a time we were going to class, going to schools, either being in the class day or after school working with students, but COVID required us to pivot pretty hard. And so you can see, you know, most of the classes are online. And then when it was possible over the summer to host the students, we had hybrid classes at Halawinana, where we are based. This is a picture, top right-hand corner, of the students taking a field trip. And I think this class is on environmental justice. Then, you know, the students kind of helping out after class, taking care of the plants outside of our building. Next couple of slides are some of the other examples, examples of curriculum that organically evolve as a result of just what schools we were working at, the teachers that came with their gifts that they had, and what they were interested in teaching. And so I picked a couple of samples to show to Ho'ike, just to kind of take a look at some of the cool stuff that the kids are doing. And so in some, you know, in our Kaikaina program, in some situations, we are working with schools and helping their teachers to develop curriculum, which is the case here. And so this is a sort of an entry to coding and computer science project. This is a student over at Navahi, Kalaniʻopuʻu, over on Hawaii Island. He was using the software called Scratch and telling the story of Joseph Navahi. So I'm going to play this really quick and you can check it out. But the student developed the graphics, developed the storyline, tinker with the code in order to give the sprite or the character a little bit of action. Yeah, all student developed. Yeah, so this is just after a few weeks of learning, working with their Kumu to develop this project. It's pretty awesome. This is another project that, Minecraft is a really popular teaching tool with our students, and some of our Kumu really excel at developing curriculum and lessons. And so this is just a snapshot of an assignment that one of our Kumu who's working at Pu'ohala over in Kaneohe was working with the students. And so teaching them about putting them into teams, giving them projects in order to develop things in this digital world, but trying to connect it with real life experiences and things that they are doing already at Navahi. This is kind of a sample curriculum. The next couple of slides, this curriculum is an interesting piece of curriculum. We call it the Mind of a Builder. This is a Hale and website building curriculum. And so you can see Kumu Tiana in the background. She is a noted Hale builder. So she, along with Kumu Marion, put this curriculum together that basically had the kids outside learning the skills and mindsets of a Hale builder, spending half their time out there, and the other half they would be in the classroom learning website development skills, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, all the fundamentals that it would take to put up a basic website. And so in these images, they're learning the syntax of how to put together a little bit of code. And this is a video of one of the students sort of working through it. So that's learning to put together, and then it all comes together when you're testing the code or figuring it out. So that's an example of the Hale building curriculum, and then this is another one of our students basically debugging her code. Another innovative, interesting curriculum that we put together was the Huliwai curriculum that involves these sensors that are allow for capturing tidal data at Makaha, as you see in this photo here. We have a partnership with this project with this professor who had developed these sensors. What we're doing is taking essentially the technology and the insight that he's developed over the years to be able to generate that data and turn it into useful insights to be able to understand tidal data at specific locations and turning it into curriculum. And so it's a little bit of kilo and place-based inquiry, and then using the sensors to back up that information that they're observing. And this is the Kumu who were during COVID had to go and collect ogo and prepare that for the students as part of the curriculum and what students were learning. And so those are just 3, maybe 4 examples of some of the stuff that we're doing today. And so you can see the evolution of how our programming has developed over the few years since we started with this first class, all the way back in 2016 again. And so, maybe a few years after we started, the question became like, well, what are you preparing the students for? Are you sort of just teaching them these skills, or what happens after that? And that's got us thinking about the kinds of things that we need to be doing in order to make ready the opportunities that we think the students can be primed for, ready for when they start to get to that age when to take advantage of. And so this is some of the efforts that we started a few years ago in response to how the program on the youth side was developing. And so the Purple Prize was a place-based innovation competition that we had run for about 4 years, from 2016 to 2020. We also started a couple of programs, or would be called maybe accelerators. Kamakainana is a design thinking program. From a Hawaiian perspective, you may be familiar with design thinking and some of the methodologies that come out from Stanford and the D School and all those kinds of places. And what we wanted to do was to try to bring a Hawaiian perspective to it. And so working with Hawaiian cultural practitioners and helping students who come to that program understand that mindset and design thinking sort of perspective, and coming up with tools and tool sets in order for them to develop projects. Our newest program is a program called Found Her. It's a women's focused accelerator program. And so if you have a innovation competition for the adults, you got to have one for the students. And so we ran for the last 2 years a program that's called Kipuka. And so it's a kind of an innovation competition too, but focused for the young folks. And this was one of the winners from, I want to say 2 years ago. I'm going to play this video. It's 3 minutes, but you can see the project that he developed.
Hey, sorry, Donovan, we can't hear the video.
Cool. Thanks for letting me know. So I'm going to just maybe move it around so you can see some of the screenshots. But Josh developed these little kits and a software that sits at the makaha that allows you to generate power, basically. So that's sort of an example. I do have some photos that I kind of stepped through, and you can kind of see. These are some of the other sort of initiatives and efforts that we have to try to help to develop the ecosystem to make it ready for our students as they get older and matriculate into out from middle school and high school programs. And so this is a photo of our first year Purple Prize. I think Marion was pitching during the showcase earlier today, and I saw her talking about a project that I think she started here. The winning prize was involved also sensors and using it to help with measuring health indicators in taro patches. And then over on the far left-hand side is our youngest participant at that time. She and her family had developed a mobile app for teaching kids about the water cycle. They called it Vai. That was our first year. I think we gave away close to $20,000 or $30,000 through generous donors, and the money was intended to help these teams to further develop their ideas. In following years, we started getting a little bit more ambitious and thinking about if we were able to raise more money to try to bring more interest or just make the program available, what kinds of projects and ideas would we see. This is the winning team back in 2017. Malama Lokoia over on Hawaii Island, they developed some software that sits on the tablet that allows Kia'i to be able to better collect, be more efficient with data collection around the pond. And then 2 years ago, this is probably our biggest event that we hosted. It was this is the final day, the Kilohoku, the whole Ike, when the teams got up and presented their ideas, and we had all kinds of different ideas that were proposed, from using computer vision, machine learning to be able to count speciate fish on long line on fishing boats, to an app that allowed to be able to help with water runoff. And then coming back to like our Kipuka challenge, this is a couple of screenshots of our youth winners. They came through and proposed putting together a robotics class that they would teach. And so this is just a shot of them in action teaching robotics at Haʻi. Very cool. Mention that Accelerator program focused on women. This is one of our newer programs. This is focused on women. It was developed by women. Bella Hughes and Gloria Lau came to us with the idea, and we worked with them to launch this program. And the focus is on helping women-founded companies to accelerate their ideas in different categories. And what makes this program unique is that we provide non-dilutive financing and childcare stipends for the women entrepreneurs. It's been often said that women founders are often over-mentored, under-resourced, and so attempted to flip the script in order to try to help these companies to grow. And so these are just sort of some examples of all the different initiatives that we have done over the last couple of years in order to try to make the ecosystem ready, to create the opportunities, sometimes companies that we think our students and other students in Hawaii would be interested in pursuing, if not starting themselves. And then tying it back to some of the work that I do with my my venture capital fund. It's been a thesis or a desire of mine to just see more companies get started in Hawaii, to get funded in Hawaii, to bring jobs and equity to our communities, especially our Hawaiian communities. And if you take a look at our history, values, any assets, right, it just fosters conditions for innovation. And so for the next couple of slides, there are some examples that kind of speak to this idea, this thesis that we have in our head that we're working to achieve. And so maybe the first example is of the modern catamaran industry. So 1947, the Manukai was the name of the ship, was built by Woody Brown, Alfred Komale, and Rudy Choi. It, at the time, was revolutionary because it was using these lightweight materials that were just novel at the time. And so it brought the costs down, made it faster to develop these boats. And they themselves mentioned it, that the inspiration was the Polynesian double hull canoes. And fast forward today, if you do a Google search, the modern catamaran industry is a $2 billion global market value. That's sort of an example. And then I don't know how many of you know, but UH had sort of a really big contributing factor to modern technology and the internet as we know it today. But back in 1971, this pioneering computer concept called AlohaNet was developed at UH by Dr. Norman Abramson here and Dr. Franklin Kuo, along with the students. Basically, they were trying to solve for being able to network and connect computers, and they developed this protocol to establish that initial link. And so fast forward today, every single wireless communication from mobile, satellite, cell to Wi-Fi utilizes this protocol to establish the link. At the time, they didn't have this notion of commercializing their technology or doing anything with it other than making it available for use. And so they put it into the public domain, and then you had all these innovations and the things that we have today. But it's been written about many times that if you were to try to quantify the value of that work, it would be just massive. The opportunity, economic output that this technology that was developed in Hawaii could have. Another couple of examples, Verophone. I don't know how many of you know, you've probably seen the POS systems in the store, but was developed here in Hawaii by a guy in the name of Bill Melton as a way to deal with bad checks. At the time, computer MasterCard and Visa were started popping up. And so he developed the technology to allow merchants to be able to verify payments even quicker. And today, global payments and POS industry is worth $500 billion. It's an incredible amount of value. And then the last local example of innovation being created in a way that impacts the world is this company called Volta Charging. So this is a shot of a stand. You've probably seen it if you were at Pro Ridge or Ala Moana. This one is actually at Kahala Mall, right by the Whole Foods section out there. It was founded in 2010 here in Hawaii, and they have a nationwide network of electric car charging stations. And in terms of impact, just a positive impact: 44 million pounds of CO2 gas offset, 3.9 million gallons of gas saved. And so, I guess the businessman in me, the venture capitalist in me, thinks about like this company in particular having its start here, being a relatively new company founded by a young person. Think about sort of the market value that it's created. And if you take a look, relative to some of the other publicly traded companies, Volta now is publicly traded. They went public earlier this year. Now it's worth, at last check today, about $1.5 billion. Then if you take a look at some of the other publicly traded companies, it's pretty significant. I mean, Hawaiian Electric is obviously, worth a lot of money. It's been around a long time and they do a lot of good things. So you take a look at Hawaiian Airlines. Volta is essentially 2 Hawaiian Airlines in terms of market value. And so I bring that up and I think about that as it relates to our work in developing programs, training our haumāna and youth, and just what the opportunities are. And so this is the founder of Scott Mercer. We met him back when he first started this company. He started in 2010, young age of 24. He was a Blue Startups, which is one of the tech accelerators here in town. At present, they have 250 employees and are starting to expand nationwide. And so, this is, you think about, when I think about like, wow, what if there were, Scott's a really nice guy. I met him, does really good. But I was thinking about like, well, what if we had, more Scotts and some of our Hawaiian kids that are starting these companies? What would they look like? It kind of makes sense. This is a picture of some of our famous Hawaii MMA fighters. And so in the middle, you have BJ Penn, Max Holloway. There are a lot, well known in our community because they make us proud and they do a good job in representing Hawaii. And then I think about like, well, then, doing such a good job that they are encouraging a lot of kids aspire to become, to get into the business, to train, to become fighters, and just seeing like the next generation of athletes, moving up and putting themselves essentially on this graphic. And so I think about like, what does it look like? What would it look like if we were to start to think about who our innovators are in the spaces that we play in? And so these are just off the top of my head, some of the people that come to mind for me and who I look up to, if you were to kind of create a different kind of a version of that MMA map of folks, right? This is a few folks who I've interacted with and admire from afar. So Keone DeFranco and Lagan, Louis Kaneshiro, all folks who have done well for themselves and getting into the industry and doing good things. On the bottom, you have Dr. Kiana Frank, Dr. Kagawa Viviani, and Dr. Rosie Alagado, who are all doing very incredible and impressive things in the academia world, along with Dr. Kealoha Fox. And then I start to think about like, well, who are the younger folks, right? The next Scott Mercers. And these are just some folks who, we've interacted with, who I've been paying attention to. Josh Parker, who you saw the video of, he's a young man, graduated from Kamehameha. I think he's at Harvard now, but does already has a lot of success. Trinity Singh is also a Commitment Schools graduate, and she was doing working with us in one of our companies, and has her own little company that she's working on right now. And then on the bottom are all these young folks that are studying computer science and engineering at different places, and they are all recipients of the Kahikina Scholarship. It's a tech scholarship put forward by Hoala Greavy, who is the founder of Powbox, which is another sort of tech company focused on email and email security. And so instead of me kind of talking, I thought this is an opportunity to try to kind of have our young people talk to you all and share sort of what they're working on, and sort of their aspirations and maybe what they think about in terms of like tech and the future of Hawaii. So if Kea'a and Nick, you guys should be able to jump on. There we go. Hey, Kea'a.
Hey. So happy to be here.
Let me just check really quick. I don't see Nick, so but we can get started in the interest of time. So let me just take this off really quick, stop screen sharing. So if you don't mind introducing yourself, oh, there he is. So full disclosure, Kea'a works with us at Purple Maiʻa. She, I told her not to show for our programs too, because what I'm really interested in is having our young people talk to you about what they've done and what they're interested in, and kind of share like how bright the future is with our two young people. And so there is Nick. So why don't the both of you take a couple of minutes to introduce yourselves, where you're from, what high school you went to, where did you go to school or going to school, and we can go from there. Want to go first, Cal?
Oh, okay. I can go first. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Donovan, for the invite. Really excited. I'm Kea'a Davis. Grew up in the Holy Homesteads on Molokai, actually, Molokai High School also. So Donovan and I have some solidarity from the outer islands. Went to school there, did the STEM thing, MEDB, Women in STEM, and then started school at Stanford in 2016, graduated in 2020 from the design school and like auto mechanical engineering adjacent. So got to do a little bit of both worlds kind of work. Love thinking about equity and design and how to more equitably incorporate tech into our communities out here. So yeah, happy to be here.
Cool, thanks, Kea'a. Nick, so full disclosure, Nick I'm trying to get to Nick to work with us, but he's a student first. He's got to take care of that. But you want to introduce yourself, folks?
Sure thing. Yeah, mahalo, Donovan, for having me onto this panel, and glad to be in amazing company, and nice to meet you, Kea'a, as well. My name is Nick Wong. I am a senior here across the pond, actually, from Kea'a's alma mater up in UC Berkeley. So I'm up in Berkeley, California. I'm studying computer science and data science and entrepreneurship here. I took a gap year off this past year during the pandemic and worked underneath Native Hawaiian CEO Hoala Greavy at Powbox, helping him kind of push that the Kahikina scholarship as well. In the past, I graduated from Kamehameha schools. I'm wearing the volleyball t-shirt, kind of matches Donovan's logo there. And I also supported Nalukai Academy, started by Darius Monsef in Waimea of Hawaii Island, where we help high school students across the state of Hawaii by giving them an introduction to entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship, and technology. So yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Cool. So just sort of a talk story, maybe one sort of project that you've worked on in the past that you're pretty stoked about, that sort of leverage your experience and maybe expertise and that you develop at even such a young age?
First, I'm super excited to hear about you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll give a little bit of a funny project. In high school, my sophomore year, freshman year at Kamehameha schools, I created a little application, web application that allowed students to see who else kind of are in their classes. So every semester, kind of before the term begins, we are sent an email to check out our schedules online, and we kind of log into this portal and we get our list of classes. And everyone kind of would always, back in high school, we'd take screenshots of our classes and put them on Instagram, put them on Snapchat, whatever. It's like, hey, who's in my period 4 math class? Who's in my period 2 science class? And I saw that, and at the time I was learning full stack web development with some friends at Dev League. That was back in freshman year high school, and I made this application that basically would kind of conglomerate all of these different class schedules, and you'd be able to punch in your information. It would kind of scrape all of this information for you, and then it would return to you your kind of your list of all of your other classmates in your class. And the funny story is, this 800 plus students started to like just sign on. The first 24 hours it was out, and some of the school counselors started, hearing wind, kids trying to switch into PE3 or period 3 math, and just trying to like move around their schedule so they could be with their friends. And I think, my laptop was taken away from the school for a little bit. So they thought I hacked their system or something like that. They thought, like, how the heck did you guys get all this access to all this data? But it was student provided, which was really funny. But inevitably they kind of like took my laptop away. I had to like talk to the principal a little bit, but that was kind of a really fun project that kind of solidified my interest as a high school student in the technology space, in kind of what kind of consumer applications can look like. And then as I got to Berkeley, I started kind of really connecting kind of this passion for technology with, how can I leverage this to help kind of vulnerable communities? And now I'm working with a club on campus called Blueprint, and we build web apps and mobile apps like what I did in high school, targeting for nonprofit organizations across the United States and across the world. So that's kind of where it all started, and now we're here doing it up in California.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that, Nick. The first time I ever heard that story, I mean, I've read about it a couple of places and heard secondhand stories, so it's good to finally hear it straight from you. Kia, you have a sort of a project startup or a project effort thing that you worked on that's...
Yes. I can talk about something. Very fun story, Nick. I think that's like the fact that Donovan heard about it secondhand, I feel like is like a testament into itself. I think for me, the big story, you said not to plug Purple Maiʻa, so I'll talk about one of my other projects. When I moved back, I finished school actually in the middle of the pandemic last March from Molokai. So if you can imagine going from like San Francisco, Menlo Park, that like pace of living, back to like being out in the countryside on my homestead with like my little brothers and their like 2 pigs. It was like a kind of a fun transition. And so I actually ended up very serendipitously started getting involved with energy justice. Some folks out there, like, energy is historically a very touchy and tough topic out here. A lot of like troubles with it feeling extractive, especially on rural places like Molokai. And so the big things with design is doing research with the people impacted by your products. So talking to people firsthand. And in the mainland, a lot of that usually looks like you schedule things like super, like they'll like, you might not even talk to the person, you might not know the person before you go into this interview. And to go from that to suddenly like interviewing the auntie up the street, who I don't know if I'm gonna like make her upset if I like start talking to her about energy. And suddenly I can't just like, once the thing is done, I can't just delete the email and not think about it anymore. But it was actually super cool. Like now I'm like on these calls with them all the time. They know who I am. Like I definitely still get like occasional private messages on Zoom asking me if they knew me when I was a baby. But it's still like we got to do like a bunch of stuff with people getting the information they need to like advocate for themselves as we plan energy projects. So I think being able to be like a method to give people that information is just huge. Yeah, I love to see the people in my community feel like they have control over that stuff.
Cool. Thanks for sharing. You folks are the, for a while, at one time, I was the young person being asked about the future and what the cool things are. And so not that anymore. And so that's why I have to rely on some of the young folks around us and who are in my network to find out what the cool, exciting technology is, what's the latest and coolest apps. So maybe you guys could share some of the, I guess, exciting or things that interest you at present about the tech industry. It could be an innovation. It could be sort of a website. It could be a movement. What's getting you excited at present?
Would you like to kick it off, Kealoha?
Direct. I can go. I feel like I'll definitely a broken record though. There's a big movement right now. I'm specifically like in the design and like stakeholder like side of tech, and so there's a big movement right now about engaging people who are close to like issues like it's called like equitable design, like finding better ways to engage people, because historically a lot of the time it was like designers being like, okay, they'll like talk to you, but at the end of the day they'll be like, okay, this is what I think is good. And so there's a lot of like going on even at like the Carnegie Mellon Human Computer Interaction Institute, like basically proving and like building new methods for more inclusive design of technology, less invasive, less extractive. I think coming from Molokai, I'm very used to being like the edge case, or the case that people like don't really think about. And so like seeing people trying to flip that is really exciting to me personally.
Cool, thank you.
Nice.
How about you, Nick?
Yeah, for me, I think maybe a little bit of a two-part answer here. One of the things that we're working on at Blueprint here at Cal Berkeley is to kind of shift the narrative of what tech has traditionally been at Cal. Is people, you go through your track and you get your degree in computer science and engineering, and you kind of go and work at a really large tech company, and you kind of like it's a very set path. Now I think what we're trying to do is talk a little bit more about being like socially conscious as an engineer, and the impact that you can have on the things that you work on in society. With Cal Blueprint, we're really trying to change the narrative and trying to push this, that we can have really engineers that really make beautiful and impactful products, and work at impactful companies that doesn't necessarily have to be these tech giants. So I think kind of the shift around how what students are seeing they can do in the future in technology is really important. The second thing that I think it's kind of hard to, I would say, almost like an elephant in the room, is this whole crypto shift. I don't want to sound like that like cryptocurrency bro on Twitter, and in no ways am I a strong advocate. I'm actually more on the conservative side, and I'm kind of actually scared of what cryptocurrency and some of these kind of potentially schemes could do to vulnerable communities that don't understand what they're putting their money into. I think that's really dangerous, and I think that used in the wrong way could be very harmful to communities. But for those that are in the tech space that have kind of some experience, I think there are very interesting kind of ideas and structural shifts that could happen with the rise of kind of this new technology. I think it's like a solution that's looking for a problem, but there's starting to be more problems that might arise, or different ways that this solution could be applied. So I think it's an interesting space. It's a lot of speculation right now, but I think it's something that deserves a second look at it. So I think those two kind of different answers exist in different spaces, but I think that's kind of what's been on my mind recently.
Appreciate that. Thank you, folks, for both sharing. I'm going to put you on the spot now. I have I'm on another panel in a couple of days. We're going to be talking about economic development. And as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, as both of you know, one of the things that we think about at Purple Maiʻa is, you know, the kinds of opportunities, companies, projects, things that our young people could do. You know, share the example of, you know, starting a pretty impactful company in Hawaii and what that would mean if it was founded, you know, by young Hawaiian people, and, you know, what would the impacts or benefits be potentially. And so maybe kind of some comments, or, you know, what you think about technology, you know, as a potential economic development tool for the Native Hawaiian community in the future. Maybe just talk generally about that and what you think.
I can hop in on this one real quick. Yeah, I'm very, very passionate about, you know, the work that Purple Maiʻa is doing, as well as programs like Nalukai that are focusing and centering their focus and their resources on the youth of Hawaii. I think that is the differentiator moving forward. I know we talk a lot about, we see these programs that are trying to bring in remote workers, remote tech workers to Hawaii, but I think it's different when, you know, the technology and the talent is coming from our youth that have a familial, genealogical tie to the place, which is our home, which is our kuleiwi, right? And I think technology and the opportunities that there are, and the kind of, not like just like the salary that you can get starting out as an engineer in a software engineer in this space can really transform, I think, our local economy, can really support families. You know, we're seeing a lot of stuff of Hawaiians getting pushed off of Hawaiian lands, but I think technology and getting an employment, even just in a base employment, can really start to combat that or slow that down or change that process. So yeah, I'm a big believer in, you know, inspiring local kids to get into technology. I think the Kahikina scholarship is, you know, a great starting point. Building that network, helping kids, you know, from the same hometown get into the space is critical for the advancement and evolution of our culture and our people. So yeah, I think it's very, very critical. I think the work that Purple is doing and Nalukai is very, very impactful. Very, yeah.
Yeah, I can totally piggyback off that a bunch. I think it's pretty common for people to think about tech as like some external thing, like external force that's going to take over. But the way I like to frame it is tech as a medium for upholding and furthering things that we already like hold closer, built into like the structures of our communities. So yeah, that's like one piece. And another piece is, I think there's totally power. Like, one thing we talk about a bunch in design is like, when you design for the people at like the edges, you unexpectedly oftentimes like create something that's really great for everybody. So I think one thing I'm super passionate about is building solutions using tech to solve problems that are like specific to Hawaii, and specific to specific communities in Hawaii, especially marginalized ones. And my theory is that like, by building what you think is a hyper specific solution, you might actually solve things for like everyone. So I'm super curious about the future there.
Cool. Thank you both for sharing. One last final question, if you don't mind, and maybe a little bit different, but kind of on the way out, if you don't mind. Nick, what's the for your question is like, what's the thing that's hanging on your wall? Tell us what's that about? And then Kia, maybe give us the weather report. It looks like what does it look like in Manoa where you're at right now?
That's funny. So I'm actually in my housemate's room because he's situated closer to the router and and has a lot more soundproof windows than I do. So I think this is the Outside Lands. It's like a music festival up in San Francisco every year that they have like a tapestry they sold. So this is his. He's got like a nice big photographer, so he's got a lot of his work up.
Yeah, sorry about that. Snooping over here
No
checking out
worries.
the background. Yeah.
No
How about you,
worries.
Kia? What's the weather like up there? What's going on?
I was gonna say I'm a little jealous that you got to go to Outside Lands, but here in Manoa, it's very rainy. so far it doesn't look like treacherous or anything, just like a lot coming down. So after this, I'm probably might make myself a cup of tea. Yeah, chilly in a good way.
Cool. On that note, just mahalo you both for spending some time sharing more about yourselves and your thoughts about technology and innovation and all that kind of thing. So appreciate you guys taking the time. Mahalo.
And thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Nick. So just got a couple of slides left, but I thought that would be kind of a inspiration. You kind of see our bright minds, some of the young folks and what they're thinking about, and just like, and there are a bunch of them. There are a lot of young people that are going away, getting educated, that bring with them the values of this place, or tied to the place and wanting to use, tools of modernity to make it better for our people, our community, and our place. So those are just two examples of that. One other program that I just barely made mention of, but it's also sort of the basis, the basis of it is education and empowerment, is our workforce training program. And it seeks to train adults, career changers, all ranges for careers and entry-level careers in the technology industry. And so that program got started about a year ago through a federally funded grant. And so the goal is the process is we train people, put them through an intensive training curriculum. It's about 8 weeks. And out of that, they come prepared. We come out of it prepared to take the Salesforce admin credential. And with that, they can enter into jobs with higher paying earning potential. And so over the last 3 cohorts now, we've had 40 participants. 32 of them have achieved their certifications. 21 of them report as being Hawaiian. And the cool thing is that the average salary is about $50,000. And this, in our first cohort, this is just an example of one of our stars in our first cohort, Maurupuno, who came through and is now working with one of our partners and doing a good job there. Just the last couple of slides, I think, like kind of trying to tie it all together, right? The programs that we do, and specifically towards, the economic opportunity and like what the potential is. This is, and kind of connecting it back to like my work as a venture capitalist and trying to support and invest in young people that have the ability to create real positive impacting types of companies. This is a young person. This article was written back in 2010. This young woman's name is Diane King, and at the time she was a high school senior. She was being interviewed, profiled, and she was talking about a company that she had started when she was in high school. Now, fast forward 11 years later, here is Diane on stage at one of the large tech conferences talking about her company and what they do. And I bring it up, it's because a company that I invested in, led an investment in maybe about 3 years ago, and one that we're particularly excited about. And so if we think about like, well, then who could be the next Diane's, the next Scott, the next, this maybe always comes back to the programming and the youth education programs. And so these are young people that we showcased a couple of years ago who got on stage to show off their apps and projects that they were working on. And then the final image and maybe last thing, inspiration, motivation, something to take with you is this image. This is back at maybe a few years ago, again, at Jarrett Middle School with one of our students who you can kind of see him focus, but when that focus on a problem that was given to him, but when you get the answer, it becomes like magic, right? When it all works together. And so with that, I am mahalo you all for sort of spending hour and a half or an hour with me, hearing the story about the journey of Purple Maiʻa, why we started it, or my story for getting involved with starting it, and what we're working on and what we're working towards. And I hope to the interviews with Kea'a and Nick and some of these other stories give you a bit of an inspiration for the future as it relates to our young people and the opportunities that are in front of them. And so I will thank you all again and mahalo you all. That's all I have.
Mahalo, Donovan. Mahalo, Donovan, Kea'a, and Nick for an incredible breakout session. A lot of good stuff in there. And mahalo to everyone who attended. I just want to let you know that there is one more panel that is still ongoing. The OEV leadership panel is just finishing up if you wanted to join that one. However, if you folks had enough for today, we will be starting up again tomorrow. Tomorrow we have a pretty good lineup. One of the things that's happening tomorrow is a panel on Red Hill that will be happening at 2:30 tomorrow. And those who are on the panel include Congressman Kai Kahele, Kamana Beamer, Ernie Lau from the Board of Water Supply, and Wayne Tanaka. And we also have a representative from the Navy who will be joining us as well. So we look forward to that panel and everything else that's going on tomorrow. But again, thank you so much, Donovan, for joining us today, and everyone who else.
Sure. Hello, everybody.